Agent Sebastian, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. I will talk about my nonsense today first, but you're calling in from a car, is that correct?
Yeah, you got me on the road, on patrol. The grind never stops when you're a cart narc.
Can you say generally, like, where, like, are you between places or?
Well, see, it's funny you say that because I don't like to give out my location at any one time because I don't want lazy bones in other cities to think that they have a free reign and they can just start leading carts left and right. I don't care as much about people finding me where I am. But no, I'm in a major city in the Pacific time zone. Currently, lazy bones, but I could be on a plane tomorrow to the East Coast or anywhere else. Don't get any ideas.
It's funny that you're in a car at the moment. Like, I thought I was gonna miss this recording today, and we'll introduce the podcast in a second. But on the 11-minute commute from my home to my workplace where we're recording right now, I got pulled over by the California Highway Patrol. I don't know if you're affiliated with them, the Cart Narcs. I don't know if they share resources.
Well, we didn't know that. We did not have any of the access to their databases.
But, like, my dad gave me this car. My dad he doesn't collect them, but he's constantly buying a newer version of the Toyota Matrix, if you're familiar with that kind of car.
I did trust in choice.
I've never even heard that.
It's a Toyota Corolla with, like, a hatchback, essentially. Okay. And he used it for work, and he had it, like, commercial plates registered on it. He had an extra one that my sister was driving around. He said, I've got an extra Toyota Matrix. Do you want my Toyota Matrix? I said yes. I had to swap out the commercial plates. Mm-hmm. And apparently I didn't do it correctly because I just got pulled over, and the CHP officer was like, I don't have your plates on file. Mm-hmm. They do not match your VIN number. Nothing is matching.
Oh, sure.
And I thought that I was going to get my car confiscated, or, like, I thought I was going to have to walk home or have my partner pick me up or whatever. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm not used to people getting pulled over in California for anything, so that's surprising for me.
Are you based in California?
Yeah, based in the LA / Burbank area. And I've never gotten pulled over for anything ever. But then again, I don't ride dirty. I'm like certain people.
I don't know if I was quite riding dirty.
Is that a hot car? Yeah.
Stolen from a guy with my same last name I'm Jef Harmatz. I think it was maybe registered to one Fred Harmatz at a commercial capacity. So
good story, likely story.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here, I guess, and I'm happy you're able to join us, Agent Sebastian.
Absolutely.
Let me introduce the podcast.
Gingerbread Man Down, Clean Up on Aisle Podcast.
This is Clean Up on Aisle Podcast, the dirty truth about grocery stores. I'm your host, Jef Harmatz, joined as always by your other host, Adam Fligsten.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Oh, well, aside from the CHP interaction, I'm doing pretty okay. Now, Agent Sebastian, you are from Cart Narcs, and you're on the road right now. Are you driving and recording? I don't want to get you in any hot water with the California.
No. Well, you should be able to tell, hopefully by even no matter how the screens are flipped, that my right shoulder is up against the window. So I in America, at least, I wouldn't be driving. It's very funny you mentioned that, though, because I think it was just this week or so, there was a lady who was doing Zoom court, and it's a big enough, and more than one person has done Zoom courts from a car while driving, which to me, like, I guess that's one of the great, leftovers of the pandemic is we all got to go to Zoom court, which technically you would think that's easy, but people forget that it's still court. And so, and the funny part was this lady, like the judge was like, are you driving? And she's clearly in the driver's seat with the, like, she's like, no, my screen's flipped. And it's clearly her left shoulder in the front. Like there's no other place she could be besides. And she goes, well, you know what? I'll have my driver pull us over. And then she gets out what is clearly the driver's side door. And the judge immediately rules against whatever her claim was or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of stupidity among human beings, but no, I would not. That's one thing as a cart narc, because we are, or I am, and the whole organization is very, let's do things the way they should be done. I really have to watch myself as far as even the slightest social faux pas, not much less broadcasting while driving.
You are held to a higher standard than many of us.
This is true, yeah. So I'm like, when it comes to the littlest, tiniest thing, holding doors, doing whatever stuff that I would think I would do anyway, but it's always in the back of my head, like, be sure you really do it.
Now, I've never done Zoom court. I'm thankful enough that I have not been to court in quite some time, but I didn't know that was still a thing. Have either of you been on Zoom?
I've got one coming up actually. It's unrelated to Cart Narcs. There's a small claims case that I am a part of. Again, fully just apart from Cart Narcs, and it's all Zoom. And so I'm looking forward to testing the waters and seeing what that's like.
Wow, have you done Zoom court, Adam?
No, not at all.
Do you have to like put on a tie to be on a Zoom court?
I'm planning on it because, like I said, I've seen these videos of these people who were, again, just driving. There's one woman who's just walking around the airport handheld, like on the way to catch a flight. And Judge is like, what the hell's going So like, I'm going to, hopefully I can leapfrog the rest of this awfulness in society by like showing up in a collared shirt and a jacket at least.
I haven't been to court in a very long time. My partner actually, she just became a citizen, I guess is it 3 or 4 years ago. She's an Australian lady. And she started getting jury duty summons almost as soon as she became a citizen. She actually is, the first time she got called, she did not get put on the jury and felt like she had failed a job interview. And this time she is an alternate, and she's just as cranky about being an alternate as she was the first time being like, rejected.
Because she got like a silver medal.
Yes.
She tried to like hide her accent. Was she, like, oh, I know about the laws.
I don't know how much she, what does she know about our customs, our ways here in good old America? But I haven't been to court since the pandemic, I guess, and I think everything has gotten. Well, social norms have kind of fallen out of favor since the pandemic because people are used to wearing pajamas everywhere and like bringing the dog everywhere. Like I imagine court is just a fiasco.
Yeah, I haven't been in a while myself. I've not even called the past few jury duties I've been gotten notices for. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there about just like cuss words on T-shirts and like stuff that should be like below the lowest level of like what you're talking about with pajamas and dogs. And by the way, dogs, speaking of Cart Narcs, that is high on my list of spin-off for Cart Narcs. When and if, because if you go like, you guys are what, in Palm Springs, right?
Joshua Tree near Palm Springs.
Okay. So yeah, and you go like to the Walmarts, at least in because I remember when I moved to California 11, 12 years ago, I was like, why do they have a dog in the Trader Joe's? What the hell's going on? And it's since then spread to, I mean, like it's better and worse. It's better and worse in different parts of the country. But it's now to the point where like if you go to the Walmarts in Southern California, in the Trader Joe's and other places, they'll have big signs, big A-frame signs out front that saying service animals only. Emotional support animals are not a classification of service animals. They're nothing, in fact. They don't say that, but blah blah blah, and even like it's against it's against the health code to bring a dog into a grocery store establishment. Also, it's against the law in California, at least, to claim your dog is an actual service animal when it's not. So, they have these giant signs outside, just like they have giant signs of where to put your cart back. Yet people just ignore them, and even worse, the employees ignore the enforcement of them. I was in a Trader Joe's in L.A., and it was the third occasion a dog had crapped on the floor in there. And so on the way out, I just talked to the manager and said, hey, there's a dog crapped over in the frozen food section. She's like, oh, sorry. I was like, yeah, you guys have signs up about that, don't you? You should probably enforce those. He's like,
I don't want to cross you. I consider you to be a moral authority, Agent Sebastian, and we'll talk about why that is in a little bit. I am a dog owner. I have a very tiny little dog, and before I had a dog, I was absolutely repulsed by the idea of people bringing dogs in the grocery stores. I would never, ever claim that my dog is a service animal. My dog is a huge fiasco, little maniac. No one could ever possibly mistake her for being a service animal. Not that I would ever try and persuade anybody. However, in our small town, and I assume in a bigger town as well, there are instances where I am on a long journey with my dog. I'm miles from home. I'm on my way back from home, and I will pop in with the dog. I have one grocery store in particular. The people who were there, we always say, is it okay if we sneak in with the dog for a little bit? And they will say yes, and they used to have treats for her and things like that. But I am that guy. I'm that bad bitch, I guess.
Here's the thing: is you aren't breaking the law. To my again, I have to delve into this a little more, so I have an airtight case. But it is. I think it's the grocery store, by allowing you, is actively breaking state health code. Actively. Now that's because untrained animals, whether they're in your arms or not, pee, poop, sniff, lick, etc., it's shed, etc., etc. Which is why the health code exists, and so on and so forth. So look for that. And Cart Narcs, copyright, trademark.
It's a good name.
Yeah. Well, so we'll see, but that's on my short list.
I can't disagree with you, but I do bring my dog into this one grocery store locally here. Adam, you're a new dog owner. Have you brought your dog into a grocery store?
No, I am very paranoid about getting yelled at, and like I just don't. Yeah, I don't. I mean, we've already talked about that. I took my dog to a dog park, and I was exploiting kind of a gray area situation, and I immediately got yelled at for it. So no, I'm trying. I want to be follow the rules.
Well, I think the issue is in California is you really would never, and again, because I see it all the time, you would never be yelled at. In fact, you are going to be encouraged because somebody's going to look up to you and say, "Oh, look at the little cute da 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 da," and it's just positive feedback, positive reinforcement. And they'll do it right in front of the giant sign that says "Pets not allowed in the store." Da 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 da. But yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about with a previous guest something that I call cute privilege, which is that small dogs that you can hold in your hand and are fluffy, they're going to get a much easier time than like a pit bull or something like that.
I will say I was somewhat gladdened when I saw one time where a woman was pushing the dog in the basket, and the employee said, "We can't have the dogs in the basket because it's a health bite, because their feet can get track crap, obviously, and you don't want that in your basket." Whatever. So he was halfway there, but again, that'll be up to Cart Narcs to finish the job on that one.
They do that at restaurants a lot. Like, I would never keep my dog inside because my dog is not a service animal, and we take her to places where you're allowed to take her in the back. And restaurants are always very strict about not letting the dogs up on the tables or on the chairs or whatever. The dog's got to stay on the floor. And even restaurants who will like not enforce the no non-service dogs inside will always enforce the get that dog off the seat. That dog cannot be up. Dog's got to be on the damn ground.
Right. And the issue there, and that's where the food is. That's where you are, obviously. But then again, the issue would be the dog would never be in the food preparation or storage areas, which is what a supermarket is. Food storage everywhere. Anyway, that'll look for that.
I realize I'm on the wrong side of the morals with this one. I guess I'm just kind of an anti-hero these days. So, Agent Sebastian, I described you as a bit of a moral authority in this modern world. How would you describe what you do as part of the Cart Narcs?
Well, I appreciate that. And I would say it's much lower than that, though. I'm just a moral observer. Like I'm observing what is obvious and easy and logical, and what people didn't have to be told a few decades ago. But as you know, and I know everyone has said this since for the Greeks. Everybody says the next generation is the worst. That's been consistent. But there are people who are at my age and older who are like, no. I remember when everybody took their carts back, and that's all I'm doing. I'm observing that carts should go where they have the spot for them. I'm just pointing this out. It's not a great. I'm not Socrates or Plato or Nietzsche or Kant or anybody else. I'm just saying, oh, this is an obvious thing that you can do. Why aren't you doing it?
So do you consider it to be sort of like just sort of maybe the smallest amount of effort that you can show that you care about community around you or something like that?
Yeah, I unawarely opened a whole like Pandora's box of different issues about community and different sociologies and just thoughtfulness and what responsibility means, as well as anger and dealing with insults and like the stages of grief and denial, all these things. But at the basic point of it is, yeah, you're given a system, capitalism and socialism, all these things play into this. So like from that point of view, you're given a certain price for those groceries. Part of that price is they're gonna give you a cart. They're gonna loan you a cart. Fantastic. Cart, the shopping carts didn't always exist. Somebody had to invent them. They're gonna loan you this $200 something plus piece of equipment to get all your groceries, and all they ask is you put it out of the way when you're done with it. And they'll give you a place to put it out of the way that's convenient for you. And for that you get a certain price of grocery. Now, if you wanted to, you could pay extra for home delivery. There's those options. There's just like at a restaurant. Same thing with a restaurant. At McDonald's, they'll give you a tray, and they give you a trash can, a little tray holder, and they would really like for you to put that tray back there because you're getting cheap food. But if you want to go to a full service menu, somebody will bring plates and blah 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 blah. It's just that you know what the system is, but you aren't forced to do it, and that's where the ethics and the morals come in.
And as part of Cart Narcs, I would describe you as somebody who you don't enforce it, but you use like a shame component to maybe have people change their behavior. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's definitely fair, but it's the mildest of shames. It is the mildest.
Yes.
It is a scarlet letter, but so much smaller and less significant. If folks who've never seen a Cart Narcs video, it's a magnet, either shaped like a bumper sticker or like a big warning sign, depending on the variety of magnet. It says, "I don't return my shopping cart like a jerk," or "Lazy Bones on board," or "I'm a lazy bones," or something like that. And I'll place it on the car somewhere where it sticks, hopefully. And it's number one. It's just that little touch of shame, a little like, I saw what you did, and now I'm giving you this. Doesn't hurt you, doesn't hurt your vehicle. And number two, it warns others, hey, watch out. This person is careless and thoughtless. So that's got a sort of a double. And number three, it has our phone number on it. So if they want to call us and get counseling, they can, although that doesn't often happen. It's very rare that it happens.
Have you counseled anybody? Has anybody called and said, teach me the moral ways?
Most of the phone calls are just people, most of them are fans. Some people are just screwing around. But the actual ones from people I've talked to in person are just continued cussing me out. It's not I've yet to, and people have talked about this for years, I've yet to actually had anyone reach out to me who's been part of a bust and said, hey, I'd like to apologize. You want to meet somewhere and I'll, buy you a coffee or something. It has not happened yet.
In my day job, and we'll talk about this a little later on, but I run the news department at the radio station here at Z1077 in Joshua Tree, and we do a lot of crime reporting, very local crime reporting. Nobody ever contacts you when they're happy about something. They only contact you when they're mad about something. When they say, I did not commit that crime, or you got this wrong, or, nobody's ever wants to reach out and say a nice thing ever.
Yeah, it's tough. And that's why, it's, if you can, and I'm not great at this either, but if you can, and because everybody gives you a damn survey these days, and you got great service, I do try to recall that if ever possible, and say, oh, they were actually great. Because I'm sure, like you said, our biases, our cognitive biases are toward the negative. We pay attention to the negative much more than we do the positive.
And I guess I wanted to ask you, so in your Cart Narc videos, you are, I wouldn't say that you are confrontational, but you get into, people confront you a little bit more, and you've got very nerves of steel. Is that fair to say?
Well, it comes from repetition. There's a lot of, because for folks who in some of the nastier Cart Narcs encounters, I'll approach somebody, they'll tell me to F off, and I won't stop. Whereas the average person would just say, all right, I'm not dealing with this jerk. They're clearly, at the least, I'm going to get into a screaming match, if not worse. And I've seen worse, obviously. So that's sort of where that's sort of a principle of all places I learned watching Sacha Baron Cohen when he's doing Borat, Bruno's, Ali G, or, especially when he first started 20-something years ago, is he would have his premise, and again, obviously Cart Narcs is silly. It's based in reality, but it's still a premise. I'm still a character technically. And he would butt up against somebody who didn't like his premise, him being stupid as Ali G or excessively homoerotic or vulgar as Borat. And the average person would say, okay, I'm done. But the great comedy that he does, he just like, nope, until, in Bruno, there's people chasing him out of a octagon, or in Borat, or he was chased out of like Israel somewhere for like parading around doing other stuff, or all this, or in Borat where he's wrestling naked in a hotel room with a giant fat man. Like, and he goes into the elevator with people, and he just, what's the next thing? Now, that being said, I'm not going to do that to the point that I break the law. I'm not going to do that to the point that anybody gets hurt. Hopefully, no one's ever been injured in a Cart Narc video. Besides one guy who kind of twisted his ankle, putting his car up on a curb or something. But that was nothing to do with me. So I'm not going to push people to the point of, like I said, violence or illegality. But I am going to go past what the average person feels comfortable doing, because that's what's interesting about it. Because they're used to saying F off and then the conversation stops. But when you kind of delve deeper, that's where you get into all the more interesting psychological aspects of conflict, of all the other stuff I was talking about, how we deal with each other.
I was telling Adam before we started to record, I have a few firsts happening in this episode, and we try and do a lot of research before we dive into a topic, and I found an article by a behavioral scientist talking about the ethics of returning shopping carts, and she actually cited your videos as like her primary source. I don't know if you're familiar with this paper.
A little background. Yeah, she I think, is she a postdoc in Harvard or somewhere in the Northeast? I forget exactly. But yeah, she had hit me up a few months before that, asking just some generic background stuff about me, and asking if it was okay. But we didn't do any kind of interview or anything. And then she sent me that, and I told her, fantastic. Because I also recently spoke at a sociology class at a community college, actually out in San Bernardino, where it was very interesting, because it's community college it's sociology 101 at a community college. So it's not very deep, but the way the professor presented it was, as sociologists, we can't do what Cart Narcs does, but we can study the results. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of his angle on it, is to kind of just talk about, behavior and how people influence others to do behavior, and what we do as groups socially. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to this psychologist, Hannah B. Waldfogel.
Okay.
It's her paper. It's from 2025. And she said she watched 564 of your encounters and used that as the primary source data, which I love. And she talks about promoting cart return as like a norm. She says, like, as one would say, Be Kind Rewind, as like Blockbuster made that like a small favor you're putting forward to the next person ahead of you, so too should we like normalize returning the cart, which I would say Cart Narcs is in a way doing.
Yeah, I for sure, I hate the term that popped up, 10 years ago, influencer, because it just meant somebody who got you to look at them, and then they tried to sell you things. But I think the real influencers, if I can get on a terrible historical analogy, are the MLKs and the Jesuses and the Gandhis and to a much lesser extent the Cart Narcs. Like the Mr. Rogers of the world. Like, those are what really the word influencer should mean. And just, again, I hate that term, and I don't use it for myself. But I know that it's popular. And there's all kinds of studies sociologically wise about like about you can nudge people in that direction through like organ donation, where when certain countries make organ donation standard and you have to opt out, the rates go from like 10% to 90%. When you see a Cart Narc video and you see how silly the person not returning the card looks, you say, "Oh, I don't want to be that guy or that girl." I was just out yesterday I was having this long conversation with this guy, and I see this other dude was waiting, and the guy I was talking to finally got out to take the card back, and he's like, "Yes, oh my god, oh you're the guy," so like it's in people, and I get messages daily. Oh, I think about you every time I don't take a card back, or I'm about to not take a card back, I should say. So I know that it's done a net positive in that tiny small respect, but I always then say, well, I'd take that and expand upon it, as far as putting your trash away, holding the door, putting your weights back at the gym, picking up your dog poop, all the little tiny things, and I think if it kind of gets you in that behavioral pattern, it's better for everybody.
I mean, jumping right into the psychology of it all. So I know I think you've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years. Is that correct?
A little more, yeah. Technically, since I first started dabbling in it around 2018, yeah. But it became 2020 roughly.
What have you learned about humankind by making Cart Narcs videos?
That's a good question, and I hadn't really. I had thought about it, but not like in that broad of a sense. It's that we really are creatures of our ego, and we really that's the animating thing for so many people, and because I can, and you can too, anybody can. You can kind of tell ahead of time if I'm going to get a problem from them or not. Just, do they seem pleasant? Do they seem kind? Do they give off an aura of thoughtfulness? And it's almost always right these days by like how if they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's okay," versus just nasty cussing and fighting and all the other stuff. So I think, and that to me is, I'm actually, I'm gonna at some point release like a book of all the nasty emails I've gotten, because it's always from men. It's always from men who are like, "You try that around me, I'll beat you, blah 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 stuff. I'll cram you in that cart. You'll be crapping wheels, whatever." And it always comes down to, and I always ask them, why would you want to, commit violence and possibly go to jail over somebody asking you to do what is the right thing, no matter how you dice it and cut it. If you're an able-bodied adult who is not, his appendix didn't just burst, you should return the cart. Why would you want to do that? And it always comes down to, you can't tell me what to do, ego stuff. And that's like the misuse or the maladaptive behavior of the ego, I think, is the most interesting thing I've learned about humanity is when it's good and when it's bad, and like how to direct that energy in the right direction.
In the time that you've been doing it, have you seen people are always like, "Oh, since the pandemic, things have gotten worse." Like, do you think that it's gotten worse? Is it getting better in your personal experience?
It's tough because I'm doing it so regularly. I don't have that long-term view, and people were screaming and fighting me before the pandemic, so I can't blame it. They're pulling guns and threatening to shoot me before the pandemic, so I can't claim that. Maybe during, the 6 or 9 months between the pandemic and the vaccine, maybe it was a little different then. And I didn't do it for a large portion of that time. But I think it's roughly the same. It's I can't say it's gotten much better. Other than people are much more aware. Like my average encounter now, let's say I'm doing a half hour in a lot. It'll be, I have half a dozen people come up to me, say hi, want to get a sticker, blah 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 blah. So, I think those people were always decent, good people. They're just now more aware of it, maybe more active about it, and so it's a classic case of like, I'm very rarely preaching to the people that need to hear me. Rarely, they're not going to love Cart Narcs videos, or they're going to leave a nasty comment about blah blah blah. So, but I think it's starting to get to a critical mass where I am reaching more. Like just yesterday, actually, too. There was this lady who I was talking to a guy who she left her card out. He walked up because he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have," and she pops right out. She's like, and I expected her to be a handful. She's like, "You know what? I'm sorry. That's my bad. I was on the phone." It's like, "Oh, no big deal. That's all right." And she's like, "Okay, I know I shouldn't do that." So I think I may have gotten to her at some point in the past. But to answer the question overall, there's still a lot of nasty people out there, and there's with how fragmented our media landscape is, Cart Narcs may have hundreds of millions of views, but that's amongst billions of people, and a lot of those repeats, and a lot of people never heard of me before. So it takes a long time to reach brand awareness, I guess, of a concept like this.
Now, earlier you said that nobody has ever gotten hurt in a Cart Narcs video, but people have driven their cars towards you. They've thrown things at you. Have you gotten hurt during these videos?
People have tried to hurt me. That is yeah. They've tried many times to hurt me. There's something I learned right there. That's another a smaller, maybe more of a day-to-day lesson. You almost never have to get in a fight in your life if you don't want to. And I'm standing in front of the bull, quite literally. But like you see these guys at NFL games or just at bars or wherever, trading blows, and God forbid someone lands on the concrete wrong. There's that you can talk to any nurse, talk to any ER team about their late night Saturdays and like the head trauma they see from guys who fall, mostly guys hitting concrete or whatever, doing stupid crap like that. People have died fighting in stadiums, and you never have to get in a fight. It goes back to the ego thing too, like. Again, because it happened in all the Cart Narcs videos, is people they'll call me literally every name, not only in the English language, but in Armenian and Spanish and everything in between. You don't have to respond to that. Like it's literally the dog barking through the fence at you. It's like if you are confident in who you are and what you're doing, unless that person is actively attacking you or your loved ones or your friends and family, you have absolutely no duty to respond to them, not only verbally but physically. And you can, and on top of that, if they commit you, you can get away, which is what I do. That's what people say. "Oh, you puss! You ran away from that guy." Yeah, and I tell them, am I going to hurt somebody or get hurt over a shopping cart dispute? No, that's insane and juvenile. But some guys are still operating at, even if they're in their 50s and 60s, at that 14-year-old bully mentality. So for some people, it just the saying is they grow older, but they don't grow up. So yeah, I have been things thrown at me, cars driven at me. But you'll notice in all my videos, I'm either standing behind another car or behind a pole or next to something where they can't hit me. It's the worst move in movies, where you're being chased down an alleyway and you just head straight down the alleyway. Like instead of diving off into a doorway or behind a pole or and the same thing with physical, like fights. Like as long as you're not within 2.5 feet of somebody, they can't punch you. That being said, not everybody has that kind of mobility, but it's doable. I'm not an Olympic athlete. I wasn't a Division I. Well, technically I played rugby, but that's actually all rugby teaches you how to do is get really good at hitting people. So, so that's counterproductive.
You seem like you know a lot about how far somebody needs to be to punch you, or the legality of putting a magnet on the car. Like, do you have a background that led you into joining Cart Narcs, becoming a Cart Narc? Like, how do you know all of these things? Is that something you've picked up in your time doing this?
Well, it's funny because I never did any kind of martial arts until like right when I started Cart Narcs. I was thinking about it. I was like, man, a lot of people want to punch me. Maybe I should learn how to deal with that. So I was actually talking to, I have like a second cousin who's like a black belt in Krav Maga, which for folks who don't know is Jewish military self-defense. It is it's punches and kicks, but it's also like how to really hurt somebody and get away. It's not like I've taken taekwondo, not taekwondo, Thai boxing, regular boxing, jujitsu. All that stuff is great, but it all has rules. It all has, don't do this and that. This is how you throw this and that. Don't touch people's eyes. Krav Maga says no. We'll do all that stuff. So it teaches you all, how to throw a punch, how to throw a kick, how to know what a punch looks like coming at your face. When you watch street fights, you see guys with their heads down and doing this whole move, and or bumping up, chesting. Guys are like, oh, what are you gonna do? Get right up on another guy's chest, and then as soon as someone decides to throw a hook, there's no defense for that because you're right up on the dude. So it just teaches you basic stuff like that. So I started doing that right around this time. I started doing Cart Narcs, thinking like, I should probably know what I'm doing, at least although that's one of the worst traps in the world, is to know just enough to get yourself in trouble in anything, I took 6 months or a year of Muay Thai. I'll go out and start fights. No. Don't use it that way. Use it only to help yourself and stay away from people. So you don't want to take, you don't want to. Well, I was listening to somebody who I forget who it was, but he was telling a story about how he was teaching like boxing to like the kids at at the bad kids school or whatever it was, the reform school, hoping it would teach them like self-discipline and how to get their energy out in a productive way. No, it just made them really good bullies. It's just kind of, so you got like, if you're going to learn these tactics and tricks and techniques and skills, apply them in the right way. So now that I have a small, I don't want to pretend like I'm some, MMA guy, a small knowledge in this, I'm not going to use that to then say, oh, okay, let's see what this guy has. Let's see what he wants to do. It's, only to get myself out of trouble.
I guess we want to dig a little bit into the background and maybe your history with grocery stores in general. We do like to ask our guests about their history with grocery stores, but let's go backwards just one little step. And let me ask you, like, where did the Cart Narcs concept come from? You said you started in like 2018. Like, how did you get this idea, and why did you decide that the grocery store parking lot was where you want to make your moral stand?
Well, it is very mundane. There's no great origin story other than talking with a friend of mine about it, like about a guy at work. It was just about like how we were just like, because he and I both like noticing things around the office. Like at our office, for instance, people will take the hand towels, the trash can is right by the door, and they'll just miss it. And out the door they go. Like, there's no way you didn't see, you didn't. There's no way. We know you're just too lazy. So, like, little things like that. And, like, and just, it's all the stuff I mentioned a minute ago. Picking up after your dog, all the little things in life where you know what you're supposed to do. And if you make a mess, someone else is going to have to clean up your mess. And grocery carts are, quite frankly, the easiest version of that I saw in my head. I was like, what was it with the people that don't return their carts? Because you can see it's a big metal thing. You can watch them as they leave, watch them go to their car, and you just wait. Unlike littering, which I would love to have done. I've caught litterers a few times. In fact, I just caught one yesterday. Where this guy I think he was selling weed in this Walmart parking lot. And he'd gotten like a little burrito or something, or a hot dog, and he had a little plastic bag, and he just like stuffed it in the holes of one of the handicap signs. It's a little like in the holes in the metal post. And I'm watching him, and he's walking around talking to people. It's like, oh, he's selling something. And I just picked it out because it would have blown away otherwise. And I just offered it to him, handed it to him. He's like, oh, sorry, So that's so. It's so hard to catch that, because when I walk around. I walk around parking lots and there's an empty bag of McDonald's or an old diaper from a baby. I see that all the time. I'm like, if only I'd been there, But it's so hard. It's right there in them. Grocery cart's the easy thing. Yeah.
Yeah. As the weed seller, you don't want to draw any attention to yourself. Like, that's the most, like, if I saw somebody like stuffing a hot dog wrapper into a handicap sign, I'd be like, what is that maniac doing? That's the best way to draw attention to yourself. Like, absolutely psychotic. You want to keep a low profile if you're out there slinging,
I don't know that he was a very high profile. I don't know that he was a very high level dealer. You know, he may still be. He's probably in the early part of his career where he's still making mistakes, like you're talking about. And by the way, not the first time I've caught some. And I was in California in a legal weed state, but for folks who don't live in a legal weed state, we still have whatever you want to call it, a problem or an epidemic or the phenomenon of illegal weed because it's cheaper. They don't pay for all the licensing and permitting. Anyway, and it's not the first time I've observed. I've in Vegas too. There was one guy who had a big jar of nugs. He was just walking around, letting people smell them in the parking lot. Because I'm sure on his end, he's like, "What? It's legal." Yeah, but you're not, and I'm sure no one busts him. Anyway, but see, yeah, that was the origin of it was me talking, and you can go back on social media, or you can even go back into like old letters to the editors from decades past. That I'm not the first person to have observed this. I'm a very hands-on guy, and I just didn't have Cart Narcs. I didn't like think of all this stuff about it. I just I would ask people, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, why didn't you do that?" Instantly yelling, screaming, defenses, excuses, lies, all the stuff that we've come to enjoy from Cart Narcs.
I find that like I'm dealing with this a lot in my day-to-day life, and like when you encounter people in public, nobody wants to back down. Nobody wants to apologize. Like when you catch somebody, and again, I'm not out there busting people, but like, I'm wronged or somebody like cuts me off in traffic. It's like, you can just say you're sorry. And people do not want to ever admit that they're wrong. And like, that's maybe a societal problem here in like, the 21st century. Just nobody can admit that they were anything less than perfect in their own eyes, and everything else is somebody else's fault.
And it's funny.
Like,
yeah, it's a good point to raise. And I would point out that is, you're absolutely correct, but it is not it's not inevitable in human culture. And I always point to Japan, because when you go there, it is please and thank you and sorry, and everything is clean. Nobody is jaywalking. You're on a street in Tokyo, and it's clear in both directions. If that crosswalk is red, you are not crossing, which I think is a little inefficient. But what doesn't matter? There is not a lick of trash anywhere, no graffiti. So it is not a basic. I mean, it is inherent in humanity, yes, but it is not unsurmountable.
Now, IKEA has a little quarter that you put in the cart, and you're supposed to get your quarter back when you return it. And this is, I guess, this is a fairly common thing in Europe that they're trying to bring over to the U.S.
Is it IKEA or Aldi?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Aldi. I misspoke. Okay. Yes. What are your thoughts on that? And also, have you been to Europe where the quarter system is much more common?
Yes, I have, and it's fairly prevalent in Canada as well, although not absolute. They're sort of like Canada is. They're sort of a mixture between the U.S. and Europe. And it just goes to show you at Aldi that 25 cents is all it takes for there to be almost never any carts left around, because even if you don't want your quarter back, some kid does, or some other person, whatever, is like, "Oh, I'll take that," or, whatever. So that speaks to the engineering side of things, is can we engineer a system whereby you will gladly pick up after yourself and put your cart back, etc. And that way we don't have to worry about people's conscience and their goodwill and so on and so forth. And I think there's certainly a point to that, but again, but I think it's not bribing people, and I don't hate that system at all. But I also, again, like I said, there was a time where the shopping carts did not litter the parking lots. You go back to any stock photo you see from the 60s and 70s, or any news footage, that might not be staged or whatever. They didn't even have cart returns, by the way, till really the 80s and 90s. They weren't really that prevalent. You got the car from the front of the store, you put it back in the front of the store. Easy peasy.
We did dig into some of the history of shopping carts, but I actually didn't know that the shopping cart return was a relatively new. I mean, in 20th century grocery store terms, like coming around in the 90s means it's relatively new.
Right. like I would, feel free to dig into that a little bit more if the data exists. It may not, but I'm just talking about when you look at stock photos, you don't see shopping cart returns from the 60s and 70s, especially because it
They're
was
very, they're aesthetically bad, and people don't want to. When you're trying to capture the perfect angle of the shopping or of the grocery store, and you're a historically minded photograph for the marketing material for Ralph's, you want to make sure you don't get the cart return in there.
yeah, feel free to, you can find more data on that. I'd be interested to see some real numbers because that's anecdotally, I hear that a lot from older people that like, we didn't even, in the 70s, we didn't even have, cart returns, and I wasn't around back then, but just from my observation so far, that's what I have noted.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. When you talk about shopping carts in the parking lot in the 70s, I imagine people would like just put, 8 cigarette butts in there and just leave it wherever. Like that seems more 70s to me personally, but
Sure.
I would be happy to be proven wrong on that. We always like to find out our guests' shopping history. Like, did you grow up in California, and like what were your early grocery store memories like?
No, I grew up in Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, and I worked at a grocery store. It was my first like salaried or paycheck sort of job besides cutting yards or whatever. When I was 15 and 16 and 17, a little bit actually. Worked in 2 different grocery stores close by to my house. And actually, it's speaking of old timey stuff, the H.G. Hills Corporation, which also had Hills department stores, which were in parts of California. They're long gone, but they had a grocery store in Tennessee at least, and that grocery store still had curbside pickup. It was when I was a little kid. It wasn't mandatory, but you could, and it wasn't. You could ask one of the bag boys / cart guys to come out, and they would wait for you at the curb, and you would pull right up, and they would load your groceries, and then you'd give them $1 or what usually or whatever. But it was that, which actually, it's funny, that has sort of come back now with the apps where you pull into the spot and you've ordered everything online and they now bring it out to your car. So it's a wonderful service that kind of went away for 30, 40 years, and now it's back thanks to technology. But yeah, this was more for like little old ladies who didn't want to push their cart out and load their groceries, that sort of thing.
I don't know if that ever went away. I feel like there's always the little old lady rule where people will, say, "Oh, can we help you carry your groceries to the car?" I personally never been asked that, but I'm an able-bodied 40-year-old man, but I think I've heard that asked of people in line ahead of me. It's not for me, and I'm fine with that. I'm not complaining at all.
Well, that's a side because I've heard every argument against what I do, and that's one of the arguments is, well, what about if it's a little old lady, she can't take her cart back or whatever? And I tell them, number one, we don't bust little old ladies. I've helped more of them than anybody out there, just being around. And number two, you can always ask the manager at the store, and they'll find somebody, or they'll do it themselves. If you're that put out. So I don't accept that argument. But I do like that it's come back via the apps. So yeah, that was the H.G. Hills store. We have Kroger, and for folks who don't live in the Southeast, Kroger owns, I think, the most grocery stores, but they call them Ralph's, or they call them Smith's, or King Supers, or I think they own Fred Meyer too. But if Kroger is more of a Southeast into Texas sort of, but they're like, you go into a Ralph's, you might see Kroger brand, cheese or something, and that's actually the parent company, and that's actually the name of the grocery store, for example, in Tennessee. But that was my grocery upbringing, and then when I
real quick on your early days, did you ever do any of the cart return work yourself?
Yeah. So because bagging cart return is all the first entry job basically.
So what it's like to be on the receiving end of like having to go pull out the shopping cart from the curb on the far end of the parking lot, or get it out of the handicapped parking spaces and things like that. Like, this is all like a lived experience for you, essentially.
Yeah, it's funny, and I don't recall much about that, although I don't, going back to our historical analysis of have people increased their shopping cart returns, I don't recall much of having to like go out onto the sidewalk or in the ditch or where, or the curb. I don't recall much of that from my time doing it. But again, that's not what I remember about that time at all. I remember more just the people I was there with than the work itself. So
It's not a seething manifestation of something. I did this when I was a teen, and now I'm exploding with rage. You're the Punisher of shopping carts.
right. No, none of that. In fact, it's funny because that's another rebuttal I get is people will say, well, when I was a clerk and I picked out the carts, I loved it because I could go outside and screw around and get some fresh air. And I'm like, well, first off, number one, that's great if it's nice outside. Super sucks if it's 110 in Palm Springs or 0 in Wisconsin. That super sucks. And number two, if you're willing to trade a teenager's recreation time for your car getting dinged or the handicap spot being blocked, then that's your choice to make, but not mine. So that's the other side of that coin that people try to flip at me, and I trust me, I thought of everything.
I'm curious. So you're in California now, and like, what's your shopping routine look like now that you're an adult and in California? Do you shop every day? Do you shop a lot, a little? Like, how does that work for you?
I do. I'm one of those people who likes going often. I'll go, not for every meal, but I like the experience of browsing. I like to see what's out there, see what's new, go to different stores, Trader Joe's versus Albertsons versus Whole Foods versus Smart and Final. These are all mostly California chains, but versus Costco, I just like seeing and having hands-on experience. That being said, I don't use a cart that often because I'm going pretty frequently. But people will say to me, "Oh, you mean you've never once left the cart out?" And number one, no, and number two, I just don't use them that often, so it's not a big deal.
I'm very much the same way. It's a thing we talk about a lot on this show. Adam, you go once a week. You do the
If that.
Yeah. But I'll go to 2 grocery stores a day. Like, when I lived in LA, I would go to one grocery store for lunch, one grocery store for dinner, and walk home. So I'm not such a cart person, but when I do use a cart, I'm really sensitive about it. I've been made fun of for using the at the Stater Brothers's here in our community. There's the big carts and then like the little shopping carts that are like halfsies.
You know the name on the internet for those, right?
For the half-sea carts?
Yeah.
I do not.
They're called derogatorily called cuck carts.
Really? Like, is there an implication that it's like not a man would use the small carts?
Pretty much. It's just it's a dumb meme of internet stuff, but yeah,
Well,
it's a thing.
That's a good side note that it speaks to like how fast slang moves through the internet now. Like how a thing like cuckolding was a term in Shakespearean times, went away for 500 years. Some dope on the internet found it 4 years ago, and now it's everything. And used completely wrongly in most cases. It just means pussy now, whereas back then it had a very specific thing to it. But like you've heard the word cuck more in the past 5 years than in all of human history.
Absolutely. And again with that shopping cart, like I love the small shopping cart. I guess I'm not a cuckold, but
I love it too. But yeah.
If I'm doing a slightly bigger shop, like I enjoy the shopping cart. They're not the easiest things to navigate in the world. I respect you, Agent Sebastian, for being able to like deal with them in a very useful and like quick way. But like I find them unwieldy, and I'll take the smaller shopping cart.
I love the small one. I use it all the time.
I'll add you another degree of difficulty. Should you go to Europe or Australia and use their carts, on their carts, all 4 wheels are omnidirectional. In the U.S., only our front 2 wheels are omnidirectional, and the back 2 wheels are straight, which allows for easier pushing and turning. You try to move a European shopping cart with one hand, and it's flying over because each wheel is going its own little way, and I was in New Zealand, and I'm watching a lady like she's got her kid in one hand and she's dragging the cart behind her in the other, and the back end is fishtailing everywhere because the cart, and it's the easiest fix in the world. But if you want to really frustrate yourself with the cart, play with the European style.
I want to ask you, because I've definitely seen a lot of your videos. Are you traveling specifically to do Cart Narcs in other countries, or are you just like a world traveler?
Both. I mean, yeah, like it's a very flimsy excuse, like, oh, you haven't been to, Australia or New Zealand or Japan or the Netherlands. Okay, let's go. Uh, that's between me and the IRS, I guess.
Write it off if you can.
Right. And so I'll find it. Well, it's a thing that's easy to integrate into any trip because it's an hour or two in a day, in an afternoon. I mean, you're not busy 24/7 on a vacation. For instance, I was in Ibiza, and I don't speak good enough Spanish to actually cart narc, so I just did like an observe and report thing. And I was just walking to grocery stores in Ibiza, and I found some guys who left a cart out, and I, in kind of broken Spanish, asked them about it. I didn't bust them. I was just like, "Oh, why would this be ahí, no aquí no ahí?" And he was like, oh, "Yeah, they pay people." He gave me an American. They pay people to take it back, and I'm like pointing to the cart return, like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Okay, all right." But in English-speaking countries, I have no problem actually busting people.
Look, as an American guy, I have this assumption that people in other countries are like nicer than Americans, that Americans are like the rudest around. I've seen in some of your videos where they, like, people in England seem pretty nasty. And do you find that people are nicer outside of America? Like, what's your take on like America versus the rest of the country in how they return cards and then how they respond to that confrontation?
Well, I'd say they're better in general. And I'm accounting for the whole coin that, if you have a pound or a euro or whatever, or an Australian dollar, I'm accounting for that difference because they have Costco's in England too. So I try to do apples to apples comparisons on that kind of stuff. And they do tend to be overall better. And there's an argument there. Well, the coin system has trained them to return cards, so they do it even when there's not a coin. Maybe that could be part of it. But in the times that I have busted people in England, Australia, and New Zealand, in general, no one's tried to run me over or beat me up. I'll give them that. Now, I did have a British lady absolutely scream at me. But it was in a part of the Greater London area called Croydon, which I knew this when I was walking around, but not ahead of time. Not a great part of town, not a great suburb, I should say. And people, the locals who saw my video, were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you went there." So like, it could just be a socioeconomic thing, which is a whole other part of the response that I get. But I will say, to the main point, Europeans, Australians, etc., other non-American English speakers, Canadians even, do tend to be more polite, less prone to violence in general.
And I guess talking about the socioeconomic thing, well, how do I want to... I mentioned that there's a few firsts in this episode, and one of the firsts is, obviously, we looked at a behavioral psychology article that cited you. Another first for us is I'm going to cite some of my own reporting in this episode.
Okay.
Like, shopping carts for me, before we started this podcast, like, we live in a pretty small area, and there's some local governments and things like that. And my day job is reporting on a lot of that stuff. And one of the first things that really, rankled me, I don't know if that's the right term, but really riled me up a little bit was, shopping carts are, especially because we're having like a very serious like crisis of people not being able to live anywhere. I think shopping carts are a bit of the structure of unhoused communities, and there's a lot of things that, like a lot of mechanisms that corporations are doing to stop grocery carts from leaving the lot, which, I think there's one element of that where like Cart Narcs is busting people who are just, as you like to put it, and I love to say as well, lazy bones, where they don't want to do that social contract and take the stuff back to where it belongs. But I think there's also a different social construct where, like, for decades, a grocery cart has served as like kind of a public utility in some ways. Am I not saying this correctly, Adam?
No.
Like, no, go ahead, please.
No, you raise a good point, because that, as you might imagine, I get a Google alert for shopping carts, and the primary alert is when some city introduces a new ordinance to deal with what you're talking about. And 9 times out of 10, they're because they don't like them all over the streets and in the creeks and et cetera, et cetera. You go out to the LA River, there's shopping carts in there, but every city has their version of that, and their overwhelming majority of their response is, we're going to fine the store every time we find one of their carts out, and we're going to make them pay to bring it back. To which and it deals, I think, with what you're talking about, is that the stores don't want to lose these things. They cost them hundreds of dollars, and grocery store margins are. I was just talking to a lady from the public radio station somewhere in Arizona. They just had this exact same situation come up, and the stores have 2%, 3% margins. Like, they're not their money's in volume, not in price markups. So when you're dinging them couple $100 a day for a shopping cart going out the door, they don't love that. But to your point, I don't go out and then shame somebody who's using it to carry their stuff around in, because that's a lose-lose situation on all ends. So if they are a public utility or a public good, you're paying for it, with your loaf of bread, essentially. So my stance on that is it seems to be the only thing that a private company is expected to just lose and not complain too much about.
I guess my reporting specifically was the town I live in, Yucca Valley, which is like part of the greater Joshua Tree area. They announced a partnership with it's called Cart Retrieval Incorporated, and they are based in Rancho Cucamonga, which is San Bernardino County. And it seemed to me, and like I was relatively new to like reporting on town issues at the time, but it's like the town would get the cart Cart Retrieval would get the cart and then charge the town, and then the town would charge the grocery store. And it seemed a little hinky to me, and people did not like when I was like digging too deep into that. And when I'm like, well, why is it going through the town? Like it seems like 3 levels too much, when maybe I don't know what the solution is to the matter. And Adam, do you have thoughts on this situation?
I mean, it's complex.
It's super complicated.
Yeah, you don't. My thoughts really is that we should have better public utilities and not have to rely on this sort of a thing. And this is a clear need that certain people have, and to be able to carry their stuff around because they don't have a car, they don't have a house, they don't have anything. So there should be a societal way for them to do that wouldn't resort to stealing from a business. But we clearly don't have that. And we treat all of our problems with fines and punishments rather than, trying to actually help people and trying to get to the root of the problem. So that's my thoughts on it.
And I mean, in the instance of the town of Yucca Valley, it's not even punitive. It's we got to get a middleman. We got to get another company, Cart Retrieval Incorporated, in to get a little taste of that.
I have run into those guys. I ran in Calabasas, which for folks who aren't familiar is a very rich part of LA. I was there when the guy with his big flatbed full of trucks pulled back up to the Vons or whatever and was dumping them back off because eventually they wander off and they get going in other places, and that guy has to be paid for his time and his truck. That's fully understandable. Actually, I think I witnessed recently. This because again, the stores aren't just going to eat that cost. They're going to say we got to stop this because Walmart's competing with Ralph's, is competing with the Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. I believe it was a Walmart I saw recently had kind of these like little plastic, maybe 4-inch plates bolted into the bottom of the cart that I believe were some kind of like AirTag style device where it wasn't locking up the wheels to keep, because that's what a lot of people have done so far, is they'll put wheel locks on that activate it when you're at the edge of the when you go beyond the edge of the parking lot. But I think it was more of that AirTag style thing because they realize we can put wheel locks on, but these things are still getting out of here. They're still going. They're still gone. And those and the technology of the AirTag style technology, tile, whatever what you want to call it, has now gotten cheap enough to the point where I think that's going to be the next step in this, so that they don't have to pay a guy necessarily to go all around the city. They can have individuals say, we have one there, there's one there, it's in the creek over there, it's in the park over there. I think that may be the next attempt at this.
That's how they did bird scooters. Do you remember those?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right. People, they would give someone $5 to go grab it and bring it back.
Just to touch back on my reporting really quickly, I did cross a lot of people by, like, we got a press release from the town of Yucca Valley, and, like, I think they expected us to just, like, just rewrite the press release and say we've got this cool partnership. And I pushed back a lot on this, and I don't think people liked that I pushed back on this. I did ask them, like, if the shopping cart is being used as, storage or shelter, what would you do? And the town said, their quote was, the situation would be handled on a case-by-case basis, depending on the circumstances, in accordance with state law. Which, that's not a great answer. I don't love that answer. I did try to follow up on this by inquiring with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department about when I saw incidents involving shopping carts. I would follow up, and I was like trying to dig into this, and I got told they said, stop asking us about shopping carts. This is not important enough for us to comment on. Like, I got an angry phone call, and they said, stop asking me about shopping carts, please.
I mean, that actually raises an interesting issue that has to do with carts, and it's another complaint I get, is people will say, it's just a cart, what do you care? Which is the fallacy of I forget, it's the fallacy of relative privation, essentially, in that there are bigger problems in the world. San Bernardino Sheriff has to deal with murders and kidnappings and all the other things. Yes, but they also have to deal with petty theft. We're trying to cure cancer. We're also trying to cure the common cold. There's little problems and big problems. That doesn't mean the little problems don't need to be fully ignored, because that's not how people work. So I understand. It's funny that they sent you that letter back, but it's basically they're saying you're too little for us to deal with.
And again, I don't want to give. I do work with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department a lot, so I don't have, I don't want to make too much judgment or remarks on them. But there is petty theft that they are more interested in publicizing. There's political and again, we're going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but there's new legislation in California that more significantly penalizes it's like a third strike for drug possession, essentially. And they put a lot of time into promoting, like, they say California passed this law and we want to let people know when we are making these kinds of busts, but they don't necessarily, and again, shopping cart stuff is a lot less significant than drug stuff, but we're not reporting on every drug bust that they would like us to report on, but they also don't want us to dig too deep into some of the shopping cart busts that are happening in town. That's my little rant. A little bit of a rabbit hole for me.
That's interesting. Well, and it's weird too because in the days of social media, if you're the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, you have Facebook. You have a Facebook page. You've got a Twitter page. You can make a YouTube page. A lot of jurisdictions already have. So if you want to publicize things, you can try to sidestep traditional media if you want to.
They shouldn't. As a traditional media guy, don't do that. Don't sidestep traditional media.
Right. Now that doesn't mean that the public may not pay attention to what you have to say because they may they may sniff out the any particular police department's intentions. But it's not up to you to tell us what we pay attention to.
Yeah. And Adam, did you have any more that you wanted to get into on this kind of like deeper ethics on the shopping cart stuff?
Well, I guess my question, Sebastian, is all the videos that I've seen of yours, it seems like you are, who you brand Lazy Bones. It seems like this is a perfect target of someone who clearly doesn't have, any physical disability, isn't a little old lady, like you said earlier, doesn't have any, is like this person by every measure has 20 seconds to return that cart. Is that something that you consider? I mean, maybe just the ethics and just the image of how it might look for you to bust someone who might not look as good. Yeah.
No, it's definitely a consideration. And that especially comes into play when we talk about disability access and disability parking spaces. Because, yeah, that's the number one thing I'll tell anybody who's out with me, which isn't often, but sometimes. So old people, in fact, will ask to help them if at all possible. If nobody with small children, even though that's not an excuse, but I don't want to enter the equation. Nobody with large dogs for my own safety, but also for if the dog attacks me, a dog's probably gonna get put down, and that's not through no fault of its own. So there are some basic rules that kind of eliminate all those people. The second layer to that is, especially now, I try to start at a cart return. So like they're the like, oh, it's too far excuse. That's out the window. So doing this, hundreds and thousands of times has kind of honed what you're talking about into like, I'm going to get rid of all the distractions, all the excuses, and it's going to be cut and dry as much as possible. That being said, I still get excuses. I still get people's, blah, 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 blah. But that is definitely part of it. It's definitely because our thesis at Cart Narcs isn't that everyone always 1,000% return your cart. It's when at all physically possible, do it, which for most people is 99.9% of the time. But I think we've gotten there's such this excuse culture we have now of like, well, you don't know, and I still get these in the comments and in emails and stuff. Well, you don't know you don't know their story or their situation. Well, in all my videos, there's a pretty extensive conversation that's had. So if they were on their way to their grandma's funeral that day, I would have heard about it, So that kind of goes at the door too. Oh, well, maybe they blah, blah, blah. No, because I ask. I'm talking to them, So like to your point, yeah, it is intentional, and it is done for that purpose, to get rid of that whole psychology of deflection and blame and sidestepping that I'm trying to bust through via the symbolism of the cart.
I know we're kind of wrapping up, but I want to share the instance in which I left a cart recently, and it's a modern instance, and I want to give these circumstances, and I will submit to your judgment, Agent Sebastian.
So you're trying to be absolved for your sins?
I don't know if I can be.
I'll hear you out.
This is something we've touched on, and like, there's definitely a lot of innovations in shopping cart technology coming down the line. I was looking at some news stories about shopping carts. I know that they are now making accommodations for having a cup holder and a phone holder in the shopping cart.
Yep.
But you were talking about kind of the the AirTag technology being implemented more. But I guess the forerunner to the AirTag is the lock. It's like the boot that goes onto shopping carts, right?
When you cross that invisible barrier.
Yeah, so what it is, it's a little plastic mechanism that surrounds the wheel, and if you look at a lot of shopping centers, there'll be a thin line in the asphalt, and that's actually, you can look up the engineering behind this. I'm giving a rough outline of it. There's a radio frequency that's being broadcast through that line that will trigger that wheel to it turns like a quarter turn inside that mechanism and locks that wheel in place.
And I'm a basket person. I don't use shopping carts that much. Not a huge amount, but once in a while, like if I'm having a party, or I used to do a food pop up, and sometimes you got to get several things in there. But our local grocery store, the Stater Brothers, that is in Yucca Valley, that I go to a lot, I don't find the shopping cart limit lines very clearly designated. And this is the only time I've really encountered this. Full disclosure, I park like a psycho. I used to live in Los Angeles, used to be a delivery driver. When I moved out here, I said, I park for my convenience. I always pull through. I park far away. I don't mind walking. And sometimes I park so far that the shopping cart will not reach my car. You mentioned, Sebastian, that like even when the cart locks, people are still taking them like out of the parking lot. I think you mentioned that.
I've seen it, yeah.
When the cart locks for me, it is immovable. I am like, and I've tried several times to actually return the cart when it has locked up, and I cannot do it. And I often that's the only times I've ever left a cart like in anywhere but a cart return. Like I cannot move it. Am I obligated to move this? Like, would you call me a lazy bones?
I run into this all the time, as you might imagine. And I've never busted anybody when they have a locked wheel. It's only appeared in a few of our videos because it's pretty uninteresting, quite frankly. They're like, and it's, especially some of these carts have two locked wheels, one on the front and one on the rear, because they're used to people who will leave with the carts. They know how that works, so they'll like lift one side over and try to avoid the radio frequency trigger. So by having two locks, or they'll break the lock, or just scrape it against the concrete till it breaks, is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. How you get those things out of there. Don't do that, people.
I didn't know that works. That's great advice to just carry it over the thing.
Well, when you know the tech. Here's a high-end level thing. This was a few years ago. There's this hacker convention where people like show different cool ways they've hacked things. Actual hacks. Like the term hack, speaking of terms, they've gotten blown up, misused. It used to mean breaking into software and making it do something that it normally wouldn't want to do. It's not just, here's a fun tip on how to make it clean your windows. That's not a hack. That's a tip. But there's an actual hacker convention where they went out to a shopping center. Some very smart little engineer went out to a shopping center, recorded the radio frequency from the little unlock button. You'll see like the cart guys will have it and they can unlock the locks with it. And he figured out, wait, what produces, and hopefully I'm explaining this engineering wise somewhat accurately, that your speaker in your house, when it produces sound, produces there's a radio frequency that follows that is produced by the vibration. I'm probably screwing this up a little bit. And they reverse engineered a sound that would produce the unlock radio frequency. I've got it on my phone, actually. It's like, it's like Morse code, essentially. And I've used it, and it works on certain models of those carts where you could just put your phone speaker up to it, and you can hear the little thing unlock the wheel. It's amazing piece of like engineering, and very simple, but so fun to like see it in action.
That's there's phone phreaking, which is like the original hacking. There was a whistle that came in Cap'n Crunch cereal, and you could play it into payphones, and it was the exact tone that would give you like free phone calls on a payphone.
Oh, that's amazing.
How
Yeah.
Apple computers started as originally phone freaking.
Really?
Yeah, Steve Jobs and Wozniak did that.
And we're recording this episode on the 50th anniversary of Apple computers, of course.
Yeah.
How far we've come. Anyway, so the point being this is that when those wheels do lock, you're right. For most people, they are paying because you're essentially dragging a piece of plastic and a heavy cart across asphalt. So I will always take it for them. And in fact, there's a little maneuver I do where you put your foot on the back wheel that doesn't have the lock on it, pop it up so it's just riding on one wheel. Then you can kind of push it on that one wheel across to I'll take it for them to the cart return. But yeah, if that happened, the minimum I would ask is that you at least put it out of the way where it's not blocking a parking spot.
Mm-hmm.
Or
I try to, but at least the ones at our local Stater Brothers, it is like I have definitely dragged it at least one time all the way to the cart return, but it is a nightmare. And like, I don't know if I need to be, I just turned 41. I don't know if I need to be lifting up shopping carts like out of a moral obligation. And that's an instance where I know that the person who works there can do this with a minimum amount of difficulty. Like they are certainly walking a little bit further, but they can unlock the damn thing. Whereas I'm like really struggling to do it. And also they don't mark the shit right. It's not marked right, in my opinion.
Well, I pointed this out too in a couple of videos, but it's very not interesting to the average person. You're right. There's often not an actual. In some places there'll be like a yellow line that'll say don't plug, but most places it's just toward the back of the area. You have to be looking at. You have to see like it's black on black. It's this little black line in the sea of other black, and it's often buried right toward the end of a parking lot. So let's say you're loading the rear of your vehicle, you might be using your cart normally, trigger the lock, and then you're stuck, and you've done nothing wrong. So I don't bust people who do that, and I agree with you. It's a design flaw. They should find a way. Now I understand why they do it because it's easy to bury the line right there, as opposed to in the landscaping, 3 feet beyond that. So I agree. It's a problem that if I were designing shopping malls, I would look into because you're creating unnecessary hassle for your customers.
Adam, any final thoughts on shopping carts and ethics?
I guess the only thing I'll say is that I don't know when I first saw your videos, maybe like 4 years ago, and almost every time I return a shopping cart in some way or another, I have an echo of seeing a video of yours. So it's definitely wormed itself into my brain pretty deep.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, and I think that I've heard that a lot, and that's to me at least a nice little side effect of it is hopefully it's entertaining, and I've thought about this a lot. It's very difficult, or it's very rare, I should say, for good messages to be entertaining. Like there are very few. I'm gonna name some names that I'm not comparing myself to, other than categorically, like Mr. Rod, Pee Wee Herman, The Good Place. It's tough to find humor and entertainment in a good message, and I'm glad to have done that in my small way.
Yeah, you are. The way that people respond to being kind of confronted with a moral failing, perhaps one might say, shows a lot. I definitely, not just I want to be a good citizen and return my carts, which I've always been a guy that does that, but also I'm like, I hope that I can take the criticism well when somebody is calling me out for some bad behavior. I want to be a better citizen in that respect as well.
Right. Yeah, I certainly, and that's the thing I don't want to be. I don't want to be a Black Mirror episode or a social currency episode of some Chinese whatever thing. Like I don't want it to be like you must or else you will lose social currency, you will be shamed, blah 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 blah. I'd rather think of it as like it's an elf on a shelf sort of thing. It's like, oh, he's there, he's not gonna hurt you, you're not gonna lose your life or your job if you don't do it. But it'd be nice, and just be nicer. That's all.
Oh, we appreciate that. I love that message as well. Agent Sebastian, if people want to watch your videos, if they want to learn more about Cart Narcs, how can they do that?
The best place is probably Cart Narcs on YouTube. I'm on every social media platform in one form or the other, except for TikTok. Anything you see there is probably a re-upload or a fan upload because TikTok doesn't like me that much. But they'll let other people host my videos. I don't know why. The YouTube is probably the best place because you can search by date and most popular, and it's all right there in a big grid. You got to worry with the algorithm for you. You just go to the page, and it's all right there.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you joining us from your undisclosed travel location. We hope that you travel safely and make it in one piece to wherever you're off to bust lazy bones. Yes.
And help folks out to help people redeem themselves, hopefully. But thank you, and I'm super glad to know that you guys have a grocery store intensive podcast going on. It's a bit of a rarity. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes. We appreciate that, and this was one of our most intense episodes, our most morally focused episodes. So we really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Well, yeah, who knew a grocery cart was the litmus test that has become? But here we are.
So thank you for joining us. This has been Clean Up on Aisle podcast for Adam Fligsten and myself, Jef Harmatz. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you.